again, as this is a documentary, I don't know if I should do a sketch. This next film will have a sketch. Don't worry, it's Skyfall. But what I can basically say here is this could be the best documentary I've ever seen? Question mark. This or The Imposter, which, funny enough, one of the producers of this was involved with. Okay, so Everything or Nothing: The Untold Story of James Bond 007. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here. Before we jump into my review of Skyfall, the 23rd James Bond film, I just quickly want to review Everything or Nothing: The Untold Story of James Bond 007, a documentary from 2012 that was released just before Skyfall, and also not to be confused with the game from 2004, Everything or Nothing. Okay, so I'm not sure how direct... well, I have reviewed a documentary. I've reviewed More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS. Okay, so Everything or Nothing, the documentary. To be honest, I think this is a fantastic documentary. I think the way it's presented is outstanding. I think the only problem I have with it is some editing between shots, but it's not some hokey editing. Well, hokey editing between shots, but not hokey transitions. And I think the way that clips and pictures have been included into this documentary are brilliant, and I love all the use of James Bond music in this film. Mostly John Barry scores, but you get some David Arnold's ones when you get to Daniel Craig's films. Some amazing interviews. It's greatly shot. The use of the music, as going back to the music again, makes me really emotional during some pieces, like with Ian Fleming and Albertal Broccoli passing away. That surprisingly got with Ian Fleming, actually surprisingly got me teary-eyed, nearly at least emotional around that point. That was something it hadn't done before. Maybe I'm just in that period where I'm getting a bit emotional in some places, like I have twice recently with Doctor Who Series 1. I'm getting quite emotional over the Ian Fleming bit, when he died, and also with Albertal Broccoli. Well, of these great people passing away, you do feel a bit emotional. And I do love how they're talking about developing the story of James Bond, the book character, and then we move into the films. They don't really go into the unofficial book, the continuation books, nor do they touch much on the Casino Royale 67 film. There's a bit of a mention of the 54 film, 54 Casino Royale in there a little bit before we jump into the main series, and Never Say Never Again is brought up. But there isn't, well, I say brought up, it's a big part of a chunk, somewhere between 40 minutes and an hour and 10-ish. It's a big part. I love how it kind of, they're starting on the books and then they talk about the Connery films. They're going one film at a time, basically, because, well, not quite. Okay, with the first three, the sort of From Russia and Goldfinger sort of merged together, and then joined with Dr. No to make the phenomenal of the first three films, and then they go one film at a time up to Diamonds Are Forever after that, and then Live and Let Die and Man with a Golden Gun, so starting Roger Moore's tenure, and then once we get to Spy Love Me, and I do have to admit that start of Spy Love Me probably is the best stunt of the entire series. With the parachute thing, the UK flag parachute, as I was previously talking about in my review of Happy and Glorious. The second best stunt of the entire series is coming up in a few films' time. I'll mention that in a couple of seconds. And we basically have a look at the Roger Moore films as well, including the Never Say Never Again issue, and also Pierce Brosnan almost getting cast in The Living Daylights, but ultimately wasn't able to due to Remington Steele being renewed, and Timothy Dalton was the result of that for the Bond series. So sadly, Pierce missed out on being Bond. On the plus side, Timothy Dalton got cast for 2 films, and then because of financial difficulties, going back to, because there were quite a bit of problems that are happening in the Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and Daniel Craig eras that relate to problems starting in the Sean Connery, George Lazenby, or early Roger Moore eras. So problems with Kevin McClory, that starts up the Thunderball problems, that starts up the rights issue between that book and characters, that influences the next couple of films after Thunderball, then Never Say Never Again versus Octopussy, and then the whole court case with Casino Royale, which ties in with problems dating before the films even happened. And then Casino Royale gets sorted so we can get the amazing Daniel Craig film that followed. And at the time the documentary was being made, the Spectre and Thunderball rights were still going on. It was only the year after, in 2013, that they were able to settle everything, which meant Spectre could return in 2015's Spectre. And then problems with Connery and You and Him Twice, which kind of this sort of led to an animosity between him and the producers, and him leaving the series, then coming back for Diamonds Are Forever after all the Majesty's Secret Service problems, which, to be honest, Majesty's Secret Service, we mostly, I think it's mainly George Lazenby we're just listening to talk about that time. And to be honest, he does a great job of pretty much telling the story there by himself, with nobody else backing him up for Majesty's. And then after Connery coming back for Diamonds, we got the Never Say Never Again problems, and then he's kind of reconciled with Albert R. Broccoli just before Broccoli passes away. So we see that, and then with Around the Man with the Golden Gun time, we got the Albert R. Broccoli Harry Saltzman split, which then means Harry sells his shares of the franchise to United Artists. And when we get to the early 1990s, just after License to Kill, and with that film not doing very well at the box office, neither did Man with the Golden Gun either. Which meant Spy Who Loved Me had to be the biggest and the best one at the time to prove that Bond could still stay, and pretty much kept the franchise going until License to Kill. And then after License to Kill, we got the financial difficulties, which meant Dalton could make his 3rd Bond film, and of course, because he didn't want to do 5 films after they were going to make the next one, and he didn't want to stick around for 4 or 5 films, as Cubby was suggesting. He only wanted to do 1. I think he could have done 2 or 3. That would have been fine. But he didn't want to do more than 1, or too many at the very least. But he didn't want to do too many, so he left, and they got Pierce Brosnan in. So with Timothy Dalton leaving, that's bad news, but good news, Pierce Brosnan gets cast, and we get a great bit with him. And GoldenEye's opening stunt is the 2nd best stunt of the entire series, after Spy's parachute jump. And we get the Brosnan era, which the reception feels all over the place. It's fun and entertaining. Positively liked, made a lot of money, but at the same time they acknowledged some of the flaws, some of the bit absurdities, like the invisible car and the windsurfing scene. And then after the bit on Cubby Broccoli's death, we also have the 9/11 bit, which leads to the changing direction of the series after Die Another Day, and Brosnan's sort of being let go, and now the search for the new James Bond, whilst also making Casino Royale. And that's when we get Daniel Craig in. And we finish up just a little bit afterwards. Judi Dench actually makes a very good comment about the response to Daniel Craig's Bond, the whole backlash to that. She found it, she doesn't find it very mature. She finds it very immature and doesn't really find it appropriate. She doesn't really like what they were saying. And just to quote her, it's difficult enough to play the role, even more difficult made even more difficult by stupid remarks. That kind of pretty much sums up all this backlash about actors being cast in roles. So like with Daniel Craig here, which pretty much mirrors Sean Connery's casting, where people thought, oh, it's going to be a disaster, oh no. And then when the first film hits, they all loved the new Bond. And the same could be said for my favourite television show, Doctor Who, where at least the last 3 Doctors, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, and Jodie Whittaker, they've faced the biggest backlash of a Doctor Who casting, I'm pretty sure, especially Matt Smith for his age and Jodie Whittaker for her gender. And Peter Capaldi, probably for his age as well, he's probably not as big as the other two, Backlash. And even David Tennant said he had some backlash when he was cast. That's David Tennant. He's now the most popular one, or he's the second most popular one after Tom Baker. So, yeah, proving the points that sometimes usually these backlashes are not founded. They're just backlashing before they even see them in action. And proven here, and also with Doctor Who, that these actors and actresses can do fantastic jobs when in the role. So I think everyone was probably blown away by Daniel Craig after Casino Royale, and definitely taken in by Sean Connery in Doctor No. So yeah, and that's the Bond examples. So yeah, I don't know if any of the other actors got any backlash. Maybe Lazenby after the film came out, but maybe I don't think before. At least not to the extent Craig or Connery got. Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, I think they probably got away without backlash for their castings. Probably more got the least, I would think. So anyway, some great stuff. It's mainly talking about Fleming in the books earlier on, and then into starting the films, and with the Connery films, and they're going through them. But when they talk about them, it's all really interesting. It's some really great stuff, and I love the editing, apart from when they're going between different camera angles. That's the only bit I don't really like. The editing between camera angles of some of the people whilst talking, it can be a bit jarring. But going from person to person, or from clip or picture, and the music included, it all looks really lovely, and I think this is pretty beautiful. It tells us a lot about stuff about Bond that you may or may not have known before this documentary came out. And even with knowing quite a lot of this stuff, it's still a fantastic watch to frequently watch again and again. I also love that. I don't know how long it was before Skyfall came out. I think it must have been at least a week or two. This documentary came out in October 2012 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the film series. And Skyfall came out a few weeks later at the end of October, start of November in the US, end of October in the UK. So I'm not sure how long it was before Skyfall came out, that this one came out before Skyfall. But I'm glad they include some shots of it. And at the very end, they sort of have this message that ties in with Skyfall's story. And also I love Pierce Brosnan's comment about, even though the Cold War's gone, which some people at the time thought Bond was out of date once the Cold War was ended, Brosnan makes the point of that you still need secret agents, you still have countries you want to protect, you protect your country and everything. And of course, you've got all these this is both again said in Skyfall, you don't have nations as your enemy anymore, or it's not the major threat. I mean, nowadays you sort of do have a little bit of a worry about some countries, but the main threat comes from individuals or small groups of people, I say big groups, but not nations. Not really. The biggest threats are coming from, well, as Ian Fleming put it in one of his interviews, madmen getting themselves on weapons of mass destruction. And a point proven by Brosnan, and later on, at the very end, the message that ties in with Skyfall's plot. About just people causing these problems. As M says in Skyfall, our enemies are not as transparent and more opaque. They're not fighting a flag or a uniform. They're not nations. The enemies are not nations. They're individuals, and they're in the shadows. That's where they must do battle. The shadows, and that is one of the lines that is actually in not lines, but shadows. The word that is talking about fighting in the shadows, which that is tying into Skyfall, and I'm loving that. I'm loving how they're tying into Skyfall just before it comes out. So yeah, I love how the documentary kind of goes from days of espionage of Ian Fleming during World War II to the modern world of spying and espionage, as we will see in the film Skyfall after this documentary comes out. And at the same time, just going through the creation of the original books and of the main film series, and it's just so bloody beautiful and so amazing. And going back to getting emotional about Ian Fleming's death, they cheated. They cheated there. They played the beautiful "A View to a Kill" music there. That's what pulled at my heartstrings. But that fucking amazing music. Oh, John Barry's music, and David Arnold's later on as well, did some amazing jobs. Not so much from some of the other composers, apart from Michael Kamen during License to Kill's bits. but some pretty amazing uses of the music, especially by Barry's, although I think they could have had less Barry, more Arnold in the Pierce Brosnan bits. But, I'm grateful they had him for the Craig ones, and the Barry ones are, of course, beautiful and amazing, and they work perfectly. The clips and the music work perfectly with some of the stuff that they're saying, even when it's just talking about Fleming's experiences in the war, or just world events happening at the same time, and the same with archive footage, it just blends so perfectly. The only problem I had was that some of the shots, when cutting between a shot, maybe a wide shot, maybe a closer up bit, etc., maybe some of those felt a bit jarring, but that's really about it. That's really my main issue there. Plus, they ended on a clip from Quantum of Solace. I think they should have had the clip from Skyfall at the very end. I know what they're trying to do, and I know it was the previous film, but I still would have preferred the clip from Skyfall at the very end. But yeah, on the whole, fantastic documentary, and it could possibly be either this or The Imposter, which has producer of this documentary, John Batsek, work on. But either this or The Imposter are one of the best documentary I've ever seen. So on the whole, Everything or Nothing, I'm going to give this documentary a 10 out of 10. Is that there are some, when that's in some interviews, they cut between different camera angles of them, and it feels a bit jarring. But besides that, I think this is a fantastic documentary, really brilliantly made, and I love how all the surviving Bonks, apart from Sean Connery, were able to be involved. I also love the fact that this documentary gets shown pretty much on a loop at Bond in Motion down in London. So if you ever want to watch this documentary whilst having a coffee or something, or want to take a break from looking around the cars and props and stuff, then yeah, go ahead. ITV also show it occasionally as well, and it's a good idea to get this DVD to complete your collection, your Bond DVD and Blu-ray collection. Same with the unofficial films, if you are completist, or find it online or on a streaming service or something. I think it is on YouTube, maybe. Might be blocked in some countries. But you might find it. If you've got a box of broadcast, if you're a university student, like I am, then yeah, definitely go and try and find it. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching this documentary of Everything or Nothing. A brilliant 50th anniversary present for James Bond. 2012 was a very good year for James Bond, the 50th anniversary of the films. You got Happy and Glorious, the inclusion in the 2012 Summer Olympics opening ceremony in the UK, being hosted in the UK. Then you got this amazing documentary released probably around the time of the 50th anniversary of the films. But the best present was yet to come, as only a few weeks after Everything or Nothing, the 23rd James Bond film was released. So tune in for my review of that film later this week, as I will be reviewing not only my favourite James Bond film of all time, but my favourite film of all time currently, Skyfall. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Like I've been at least twice with Doctor Who Series 1 recently, getting quite emotional. My second favourite. So, Bad News in Pierce not getting. We finish up shortly after, to quote Judy, so anyway, yeah, I also love that. I don't know how much. I think they released lots of. I don't know how. This documentary was somewhat time in March 2012, and then Skyfall followed a few weeks later, at the end of October, and then later on, a sort of a point that relates to Skyfall. The message of to the modern spy world, and climax to the modern political world, and all in all, if not, and if you want, and getting this doc. Okay, so that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and that's pretty much it. And so tune in a few times. So tune in later this week when I review. So tune in for my review later this week of that. I'm so looking forward to this one.